After a certain high level of technical skill is achieved, science and art tend to coalesce in aesthetics, plasticity, and form. The greatest scientists are artists as well.
And if you look at the future of work, I really like the way they compartmentalized it into how to understand it.
And focus more on processes.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided it's time to implement processes in the business.
His name was Mo, and he would just, if I wasn't looking, because there were 79 students in the classroom.
Okay. Which means to go above and beyond.
Oh, that's
right?
Nice.
And then what is the word for to win?
To win.
Also, it's important if you're not on mute. So looking at my camera and saying hello once again, I am Nazreen Ibrahim, CEO and founder at NAS Consulting. Thank you very much for joining this panel discussion, which is being hosted on the AI Africa Report page, Facebook page and YouTube channel, depending on where you're joining us. There are a number of partners helping us to stream today. So we thank very much the Nika Technology Group, the Development Foundation, Zindi Africa, Robots Can Think, Joss Dirks herself with her book, the book that we will be talking about. Joss, you need to give us the name of the book because it just went out of my mind. And we did a particular poster for it today, so I cannot believe I cannot remember it right now, but we will talk about it, as well as a number of other partners who are streaming this particular stream live. The women on our panel today, you have seen in our intro video, are doing things in the tech community globally that makes sense for women and girls in STEM and tech for good. And that's particularly why we are here today. The theme of the conversation is creativity, diversity, and AI. And our intro video has told you who we have, but I would like to give you a little bit of insight into who they are. Selena Lee, founder and CEO of Zindi Africa. Yashmita Bana, who will be joining us shortly, founder and CEO at Nika Technology Group, as well as board trustee at the Via Development Foundation. Of course, Dr. Natalie Raphael, founder of Robots Can Think, and the one who has brought us all together today, Joss Dirks, a phenomenal woman who's the founder and CEO of B Nova AI. And I hope she is not too, I will seek forgiveness for not remembering the name of the book right now, but she's going to tell us a bit more about it. I want to bring them into studio now. Joss, Selena, Natalie, a warm welcome to this power panel that we've arranged today. Thanks very much to Natalie, and we're awaiting the arrival of Yashmita. Please introduce yourselves and let's get going.
I'll go. Thank you, Naz, and thank you to the phenomenal women that you're going to be hearing from today. I am Dr. Natalie Raphael, Women in AI South Africa ambassador, as well as the founder of Robots Can Think. Naz did a phenomenal job in introducing us, so I will not take up more of your time.
My name is pronounced Yos. Well, I'm not winning today, Yos. I'm going to be blacklisted in your books. This is not good. I'm supposed to be supporting my sister here. Girls Do Good. And that's the name of the book. If you head on over to the Dia Development Foundation Facebook page, there's a fantastic, excellent opportunity if you are a civil society organization or a not-for-profit focused on promoting tech and women and girls, especially in the Tech for Good and the STEM initiatives. You can apply for a copy of Yos's amazing book, Yos. Yos, is your name, what is it derived from? What is the meaning of Yos? What language is it?
Well, in addition to being a city in Nigeria, which I was not named after, but I do like to tell people from Nigeria that I was, just because it kind of messes with them and it's fun. Now, first of all, a name is a name and what's in a name, but I really wanted to say thank you so much for having us today. Take a deep breath. It is all good. We're going to have a great time on the panel. So very honored to be here. Thank you, Dr. Natalie, for organizing, and Selena, always nice to see you. So the name Yos, I was named after my grandfather, actually. And yeah, that's about it. Short for Joseph.
Brilliant. And as you've brought that to a close, telling us who you were named after, there's another woman in particular who I consider not only as a mentor, good friend, but also as a business associate, who's a fantastic person. Yashmita Bana has joined us from Nika Technology Group. She's the CEO and founder, as well as a board trustee at the Dia Development Foundation. Welcome, Yashmita, and please give us an intro.
Oh my goodness, I'm just on the spot. I just sat down on the couch. Yeah, thanks so much, Nez. Yeah, I'm Yashmita. I'm the CEO of a company called Nika Technology Group. We've been in business for over 13 years now, really doing a lot of work in the tech space around data center optimization, business analytics, big data, data lakes, and dabbling into AI and that sort of thing right now as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm glad you were able to make it. I know you had a meeting you just came out of. Selena, I have been following your work for a while on LinkedIn. We connected, and you know how it is. You connect with people on LinkedIn and you follow their work and you get to know them because of that feed. So it's wonderful to be able to talk to you properly today. Thank you for doing the work at Zindi that you do. And please give us an introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is nice to meet you in person now, or in person. And yeah, and Natalie, thanks for organizing this panel, and it's really great to be connected with all of you. I'm Selena Lee, and I'm the CEO of Zindi. I'm also one of the 3 co-founders of Zindi. I think over the conversation, I'll tell you a bit more about the platform.
Amazing. That sounds great. And thank you once again. It's so nice to talk to women who all share the same energy, are doing similar work in trying to drive this commitment to empowering women and girls in the field of STEM or STEAM. But that word empowerment, about empowering people who are already empowered, I think we must talk about that more. And I often have that difficulty with saying, why are we talking about empowering women when they are already? It's just we're trying to enable opportunities so that everyone has equal opportunity or access. Now I want to talk to Natalie. How did you say your surname? Because I've been saying it incorrectly again all the time. For a media and comms person, I'm looking at my colleague. I need help myself.
It's Rayful.
Rayful,
yes.
Okay, Dr. Natalie Rayful. Now, before you introduce yourself, we want to show our audience something that was announced today. And I want to bring it up on screen quickly. If you look at this image, it's today it was released, the Forbes Africa 100 Innovations, Inventions, and Icons from Africa. And one of the people who features in that is Dr. Natalie Rayful. Many congratulations, Natalie. Very, very, very well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Fantastic achievement. Please tell us more.
I didn't know about it until it was published today. So yes, took me by surprise. My family still don't know. So yeah, you guys are fortunate and privileged. In saying that, I think, you know, it's about time that we have females inventing and innovating using technology for good. And it's about time that we have a seat at this wonderful table where it was a predominantly exclusive elite crowd. And now we have maneuvered our way in it. And I'm hoping 100% that I just pave the road for those who are going to follow, and especially those who are differently abled, I wouldn't want to call them less fortunate, but those that just do not have the same means that we do. So that's it.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much for the introduction. And again, many congratulations. I know this is phenomenal to be able to share this day with you as the news was released. We have so many viewers. I'm very excited about that. 19 people on Facebook tuning in. YDEI Africa. A lot of friends, I'm sure, from our group here on the panel discussion. Rudo says, congratulations, Natalie. Samantha and Giri, well done. Natalie, Christoph, Zoff as well. I just bought the issue, he says. So it's already getting around. Nilesh, wow, what an amazing achievement, a huge
Chris is actually from Vienna, and Sam is actually from our government back in Gauteng.
This is amazing news. So I'm really pleased that we've got interesting people as part of our community today watching. I think when you talk specifically from my perspective in AI ethics, this one word always comes to mind or is always thrown around, which is multidisciplinary. So I cannot say, absolutely could not say that we don't have that today. We do in our audience, and I'm very happy for that. I want to kick off first with the video that Natalie talked to me about. When we talked about this panel discussion, she said, I think it's going to be really cool first to tell our audience about a woman named Dr. Merit Moore. And she's achieved what some would call the impossible, a career as a professional ballet dancer and as an academic quantum physicist. That's from the University of Oxford. I want to play that video firstly. And then I would like Natalie to just enlighten us a little bit, all of us, on why that was particularly important for us to showcase this evening. Natalie, we'll go ahead with the video and then we'll bring you on.
Lovely.
Excellent stuff. Here we go. Natalie, why did you think this particular video was important? Why did you want to bring it to everyone's attention?
I think it's because each one of us around this virtual table brings our skill and our joint skill and our diverse skill set allows us to create that phenomenal robot who can replicate a ballerina's moves, other than the piano just being super fantastic. In saying that, if you look at what Zindi.com achieves for Africa, for Africans, it's just that. It's providing a platform that just surpasses the barriers that we consider as barriers. If you look at what Jos does, she brings about creativity and applying AI to cement and segment that, hey, we can achieve this, whether it's a book, whether it's conversational AI, and whether it's just AI consciousness, it's phenomenal. And if you look at what Yashmita does from a Dia Foundation perspective, and her passion for the upliftment and STEM education for those that are just differently abled. I think that video just speaks to all of us coming together in this unique way to bring about the change that we hear in the world, and we make it real. And that's really why.
Okay, excellent. I like how you've attributed that particular collaboration between the robot and someone who's applying the physicist, as well as understanding the form between robot and human and what that could mean for expression and form of self. So it's, I think the form of self, especially with robots, is an ongoing conversation, also one that may or may not include the question around diversity or gender specifics. So it's something that I would like us to explore a bit more. To kick off though, I think what would be nice to get to know everybody a little bit more is, what keeps you up at night? And this is a question I had asked to me in another panel discussion, which really made me think. So Ms. Yashmita Bana, what keeps you up at night? She's like, why are you choosing me first?
That's a very easy one, Naz. Though what keeps me up at night is my daughter. And I mean, I think I can bring her into the conversation because the Dia Development Foundation is actually named after my daughter, Dia. And Dia means the light. And what keeps me up at night, to be honest, is about how we can make the world a better place for somebody like Dia, because she has Down syndrome, and how we can make sure that she integrates into society and she finds her place in society. And my passion is making sure that not only Dia, but other kids like her or kids that are differently able are able to also have a seat at these type of tables going forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Yash. And thank you for giving us a little bit of insight into Dia Development Foundation. I know we will announce what's happening in terms of collaboration with Dia Development Foundation, Women in AI SA, and Zindi Africa, led by Selena here. So Selena, I'll go over to you on that note. What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, so a little bit of background about Zindi, because I guess Zindi keeps me up at night, but our mission is actually, I mean, the reason why, I mean, the kind of the problems that were keeping me up at night, it's the reason why we created Zindi. So Zindi's a data science competition platform. We think of ourselves as kind of a marketplace where we can connect, the demand for data science and AI skills, talent, solutions with the supply for it, which is basically all of these young people across the continent, across Africa, that are building their careers in data science and maybe are just lacking that opportunity to showcase what they're able to do, to apply their skills to real world problems that mean something to them. And so this is Zindi, and we've, over the last 2 years, brought together a community of over 25,000 data scientists from across the continent. 23% of our users, of our data scientists, are women, which is, I think, we still have a lot of work to do, but it's fairly good considering the global state of the sector. And so the reason why we created Zindi was this frustration with coming across organizations and companies that, in Africa, that have a lot of data, but we're not able to we're not really able to extract the full value of these assets, of these data assets that they had. And the frustrating point was, especially when we talked to them, their assumption was that in order to get the value out of their data, they had to look outside of their own economies, outside of their own country, even outside of their own continent, in order to get the talent to work on the data sets that they had. And when we first launched Zindi, I literally was in Tanzania and had a conversation with a bank there, and I was telling them about Zindi, and they said, Selena, the problem is that there are no data scientists in Tanzania. And I was able to then show them Zindi and say, well, we just launched Zindi like a month ago, and we already have about 30 data scientists from Tanzania who are right here, and they're ready to help you, they're ready to work with you. So I think the thing that keeps me up at night is how do you make space? How do you make sure that everyone has space at the table, they have their seat at the table, so that the solutions that we're developing is not just, and I also say that, there's tremendous opportunity in Africa, and people are excited about Africa being a market, and we want to make sure that that Africa, it's exciting to think of Africa as consumers of AI services, AI products, AI solutions, but we also have to get excited about their ability
The talent
to
and the skill.
to
And the talent
build
and the
these
skill is available.
solutions. Yes, yes.
Yes,
So we need to ensure that
absolutely.
people have their seat at the table.
Thank you, Selena. Important work indeed to do, especially because unfortunately in this day and age, we continue to have the conversation around gender disparity and what it means for men and women to both be in the field of tech or building solutions that serve humanity. But making that space is incredibly important. So we really celebrate the work you're doing at Zindi. Yos, you are a renowned global speaker as well as being a Singularity University faculty member, which I found particularly interesting because for most people, Singularity University is also a space where you're learning how to think in another way. It's mostly that is the value proposition. And I got introduced to you by Natalie, who's now become a super dear friend of ours. So that's fantastic. Tell us about your work, the book that you've written now, and what it means overall in the work that you are trying to do at Benova AI.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Naz. And it's so nice to hear everyone's stories. And Yashmita, just your story about what the name of your foundation, what, your daughter's name and the light. It's so beautiful. I'm like, I got goosebumps. It's so gorgeous. And Selena, it's so nice to hear that story. You're like, actually, here's the talent that you're looking for. And, I just find that really inspiring. And I've already, said words about Natalie as well. But I think, we've said it before, everybody being represented. And there's one statement that I always find so difficult to consume, which is we're giving them a voice. We're giving them a voice. No, people have voices. Just be quiet and listen. And I think that now we're kind of making space for that. And that's been part of my mission on Earth for the last 33 years, also probably on a soul level, but also the way that I grew up has always shown me different facets of humanity and what it means to have truly diverse and inclusive spaces. Yes, we did that through the book. I've been doing that through different products and projects my entire life. And now at Benova AI, we build inclusive AI learning solutions. And that's really about the human and what it means to be a full human, what it means to have a safe space to learn, what it means to bring your full potential to work or to school, and actually building scalable, sustainable solutions that can touch everybody's life when it comes to education.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I think it's a running theme throughout all of the panelists who are here, who are incredible women in their own right. Selena, Natalie, Ashmita, yourself, Yos. The work that we're doing, we're bringing forward, and from our organization as well as socially acceptable, it's what we're trying to do to enable understanding, to enable a different way of thinking so that people understand they are involved, they can do this, there is space for people, and that these solutions are very relevant no matter what you're thinking about. We've got very nice feedback from our community that's watching. Inteleko Nomsa. Nomsa is a good friend of ours as well. We know her from the community. Running Amatuba AI, if I'm not mistaken, one of the co-founders. They're so inspired by you ladies' pick-ups. Thank you, Nomsa, for supporting. Samantha Ngiri says, I like inclusion of art. Creative thinking is stimulated. Nilesh, also a few comments from him. The art component is increasingly important in designing technology. Of course, naturally, because it allows you to understand form and function. And that for me is particularly important. My daughter's school has changed the narrative around STEM and has instead introduced the concept of STEAM instead, science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics, which I know you've been talking to me a lot about, Yash, especially under the Development Foundation. Shalani says, I generally get excited when topics around diversity and inclusion are brought up. I believe Africa stands a better chance to be inclusive from the ground up because we are all at that adopting and developmental stage. It comes with us being intentional in our policies from the beginning. Big ups, ladies. Before we move on to other questions, any feedback to some of the comments we've received, ladies? Natalie, before we go to you to finish off, any comments?
I think it's phenomenal that we as adults are now talking about creativity. We usually look at it from a child, infant perspective. And I think it's important that we understand as adults that we also have to unlearn some of the bad habits that we have forged. How do we make a difference using our creative side and do it from where we are. We all don't have to go out and be Elon Musk, but can we then do it from where we are? Can we write a book? Can we provide a platform for AIs across Africa? And then can we include those that are differently abled as well? I think those are the important aspects for me.
Are those some of the questions that keep you up at night? Because I didn't ask you what keeps you up at night.
Absolutely nothing keeps me up at night.
Also a positive answer to give, which is good.
Seriously, I sleep really well. However, during the day, my mind is terribly consumed with just the topic at hand today. It's really around diversity. Are we around this table, just providing lip service? Are we really including and being diverse in who we include and who we exclude? Are we a full-on female organization because we think that is diversity? Or are we, looking at specific aspects of creativity and excluding some? So I think it's a big mindset shift for me. And it's really about how we acknowledge each other and how we leverage the strengths of each other, not only around this virtual table, but those in the audience and those back home in Eastern Cape who just do not have the access to see this phenomenal live representation of who we are and what we can do for this country and the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of, may I say something further to this?
Please go ahead.
Awesome. I think I always was so confused when art was added to STEM versus STEAM, because for me, art was like the most important thing. And we were like, science, this, math, that. I was like, that's cool. But like art and creativity, that's what makes the world go round, and of course, like that was when I was, younger and always playing and always creating. And I think, there's so much space for everything. And I always, I really echo what Natalie is saying. Like, we build a space assuming that it's diverse, but the minute we start to think that, I think we are already at risk for missing someone. So is the real question, can we, claim a space as diverse, or do we just continuously get there and continuously go deeper? And that's why I think it's such a beautiful conversation, because it doesn't really ever end. And the second thing I wanted to share was this summer, the European summer, so South African winter, I was actually planning on taking 31 days off the internet. Because if I really think about the times in my life when I created the most, it was not, yes, I will not be available on WhatsApp, Natalie. It was times when I wasn't online, when I wrote musicals or like the book, and I've written a few books, but I mean, just when you can disconnect and get deeper into yourself, that's when real beautiful, real magic happens. And actually, Yashmita, I think kids have a way of doing that too. They just ground you right away. So, I always, I don't know how deep you want to go on this conversation, Naz. I'm not the host, but I think it's really interesting to think about how deep do these questions go? Are we really being our full self when we are online? Yes, we can build solutions online, but where do we live our best life? Those are just some things that I think can help continue to guide this conversation.
So I thank you very much, Jos, for bringing that together, because the art part, which is brought up by many comments that we have coming through from our audience watching, and I'm going to bring some of them up now. I want to get to Selena and Yashmita to talk more about the artistic element, because the elements we want to figure out now today, we started at 5:30, we have an hour to go, and what I'd really like to take out from this hour is we are talking creativity, diversity, and AI. We will speak about the creative aspect, which encompasses the artistic component, which is why we kicked off, now I understand properly, with Merit Moore and combining the functional form with the artistic form, choosing a robot to help her mimic her steps. I then want to understand it from the perspective of your organizations. And then we will go to finally understanding why ethics in this component matters. And the reason I'm pushing ethics is because as an AI ethics officer, it's very important for me to talk that. We must also tie in and bring in the elements of what it means for particular industries in South Africa, like agriculture, like media, communications, technology, and from the governmental perspective. So if we move in that flow, coming from your perspective, and before we do go to Yashmita Yos, we've got a comment here from Kamal Ramji. He says, from Diana Ramji, 9 years old. Hi, I'm Diana Ramji, Yashmita Bana's niece and Dia's cousin. I feel really happy and inspired because there are different women in the world with problems, and I would like to raise money to help all women. We've got 9-year-olds on the call, guys. There's got to be something right.
That is just phenomenal. That's blown me away. That's amazing. She wants to raise money to help people.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got to help her get a fundraising campaign online. Talking about diversity and inclusiveness, how do we close the technology divide? I want to come to questions closer to another part of our conversation, so I'll pick that up again. Shamira Akbar has a few questions as well as YDEI Africa. Rudo says, we are often told to choose between art and STEM. I love how we can have this conversation, combining the two. And last one that I will go to before we continue with the panelists. This is great, ladies. Thank you for this platform, especially coverage and recognition of the differently able children and those in the artistic spaces. Kudos. Talking about that, TikTok South Africa has agreed on a partnership deal for royalties with musicians, composers, writers, all as part of the music industry in South Africa, which is an interesting thing about how they're bringing the artistic space into that particular arena. And we can talk about that at some stage. But it's just a side note, just to let you in on some news happening. Yashmita, you are an artist. I know I have seen many of your pieces. Working as the CEO of a tech organization that produces solutions for positive social impact, how do these two correlate for you? Let me unmute you here if I can.
Thanks, Nez. Yes, you've seen many of my pieces that I've done. I mean, I'm an amateur artist. And I really, from what Yos is saying, my best ideas come when I'm sitting in front of the canvas painting. I mean, if I spend 2 hours painting and my mind is completely clear, and that's suddenly when I get ideas popping. When basically, if I'm not thinking, it's almost that's when your ideas pop up. It's very like counterintuitive. But I firmly believe in the inclusion of art in STEM subjects. I drive it quite hard, not only here at home, but also at the company I work with, that I'm at. And, you know, our tagline is bringing EQ into AI, which is about bringing the emotional quotient into the solutions that we developed for our clients and for society in general. So yes, for me, the art component is probably the most important part to bring about creativity. You've been to our offices as well, and you can also see everything that we do in our office, even the way the furniture is arranged, even though the chalkboard walls that we have painted, everything has to have an element of art to it.
Thank you, Yash, for enlightening the rest of the audience also about how the artistic perspective informs the design thinking around solutions you're building for clients, because I think that's, if I want to talk about it from a corporate perspective and how a group of designers, thinkers, strategists will come together for people watching, that's essentially what our speak would be like. But before we go on to Selena, I want to recognize Sibiwe, Youth Development Agri Mix CETA Director as well. Natalie has given me some indication that we have them in the audience. Sam Ngidi is the Director of Gauteng eGov. Thank you very much for joining us online. We hope that you are taking away something of value from these conversations, because sometimes the only words we are hearing are Fourth Industrial Revolution of OIR, and particularly from elements or areas where there might be an understanding, but not the full component of those who are working on the ground, like the panelists I have on the show today. So this is very incredible to hear. Selena, coming from the Zindi perspective, you are currently hosting and will be hosting a virtual hackathon on the 10th of April that addresses GBV. It is sponsored, I think, by the French, the Agency for French Development.
Yeah.
And I'm also pleased to say that the Their Development Foundation has sponsored Yoss's book, Girls Do Good, to the top 3 winners as well, which I'm very proud to say we have an arrangement in terms of collaborating in that perspective. The rest of the books received from Yoss will go out to various organizations. We'll talk about that collaboration a bit later. Please tell us a bit more about this hackathon coming up and why it's so important right now.
Sure. Yeah. So, and thank you so much for the partnership. To be able to give the books out to the winners, and with Why South Africa, it's just incredible. So, Zindi's hosting a hackathon on Saturday with our community of women data scientists. So we're expecting at least 100 or 200 women to come out from the community. It's a virtual hackathon where we'll be using a data set actually that was collected by the statistics office in South Africa around crime and violence that all South Africans experience. But what we're looking at specifically is on the angle of how do women experience, how do they experience vulnerability? What we understand from the data just initially is that while men are more likely in general to experience some type of crime committed against them, women experience crime in a very different way. I mean, they have more property damage, they have obviously more, sexual-based violence, and so we want to invite our women data scientists from across Africa to look at this data and start to understand the dynamics a bit better using machine learning and AI.
Selena, what's important for me, and I would like to take a few moments to address it quickly, and I would like everyone else in this call to please also address this question, is around the data sets themselves. How effective are the data sets that we have on hand, considering that we get them from various sources? What is the potential for us to derive our own data sets from a culturally relevant point of view, secondly? And why don't we have those culturally relevant data sets as yet? Because I think when we look at data sets, of course, there's going to be an element of bias that's going to be something we can't get rid of totally. We are all born with an inherent bias about a number of things, but we work on them actively on a daily basis to create better humanity. So what would you say to that? And I'd like the rest of the panelists to answer, please.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic question, exactly. And part of our partnership with AFD is also around improving, I guess, the availability of data sets around gender-based violence and other issues that affect women, disproportionately affect women. So on Zindi, we're running this hackathon on Saturday, but on the platform live right now is a competition, an invitation, I guess, to our community to also generate new data sets that speak to these issues. And you're right, Naz, that there's uncovering the data sets that exist, but there's also an opportunity to create more data sets, to collect data in different ways, to scrape data from different sources, to kind of put together what bits of information we do have. And so that's our invitation to the community. I would just plug that as well and invite anyone who's thinking creatively about data to take, to apply their mind to that issue as well. Why don't we have more culturally relevant data sets? That goes back to, what I was saying, that we want the right people at the table when it comes to not just analyzing the data, but also collecting the data. People who understand the underlying implications and nuances of the issues so that they're collecting the right data, so they're collecting it in an appropriate and relevant way. This is just a small example, but in some of the work that I did before about collecting data on kind of like people's economic lives, there was an instance where we had a debate internally when we were collecting this type of data about whether or not unpaid work at home was considered a job, and whether it was adding value to the household, for example. This is just a small example, but this happens all the time, and this speaks to why it's so important that you have women and diversity in terms of how you ask questions, what questions you ask. So the point was that, are women who are working in the home actually adding value And I think any woman here on this panel, any woman who has raised a family, who has, who has experienced this would know that we are adding value. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Selena, thank you so much for that feedback. Of course, the work is ongoing then for us to create culturally relevant data sets, because that is what will help in long way to building better outcomes for the systems that we build. Yas, what's your perspective on data sets in general from the work that you've been doing and your perspective of the landscape?
Yeah, to build on Selena's response, there was this study that came out about women in work, and it was women do 3 times as much housework. I'm 3 times, give me a break. Whoever calculated that made a mistake, but it's all good. So that's one side. I think, there are so many stories that haven't been captured, and it's that, it actually is what keeps me up at night, is that we just repeat stories that we know, and now we're limiting that even further. So I do find that a big, big issue. Equally, languages, I think that we've chosen to convene today in English, and that's fine, but I always think about people for whom the language that's being spoken isn't the main language, because jokes get lost, nuances get lost, and all of that is part of this larger narrative that we need to try to capture responsibly using AI.
Thank you so much. Part of also being responsible in using your technology is having your machine charged. And I'm currently looking for a point where I can charge my machine. I don't see one in this office, so I'll find it. And hopefully my machine won't die. But beyond those mundane matters, Yashmita, you often create solutions, particularly for from the perspective of enterprise solutions, from the perspective of governmental requirements. And I'm just talking generally. We won't give away any names of clients we work with, because that's not how we operate. But please tell us about your perspective on what is experience like with collecting that data? What experience have you had, or difficulties thereof?
What we're finding with our clients is specifically government, and every government department has a unique story to tell about themselves, believe it or not. And the best way to connect with these stories is to connect with the people on the ground, because there's actually some really good work that's happening in many of the government departments. And that's where the diversity and the comes through in the way that the data sets that we get, the speaking to the people on the ground and using them actually to do the data capturing and so on. So that's how we do it.
You're on mute.
That's very interesting, because a lot of times there may be a perception that governmental departments don't have readily available data sets, or they may not work as accurately as we like, little realizing that actually these data sets are sitting there. And this is why an organization like Zindi Africa would exist as well, is to uncover them and then understand the appropriateness of them, but also where they would work really well. Natalie, I want to go to you to answer that question. Finally, we have quite a few comments coming in, and I want to take them. We are going to have a section of 15 minutes for questions that we will address to end off the session, which means if we are ending at 6:45 or just 10 to 7, we have 30 minutes left in this session. And that would mean we have 15 minutes for discussion, 15 minutes for questions. I have to be like a drill sergeant and get it together. Hello, Dia. I can see you in the photo. Please come in and say hello to us. Hello, baby girl. Okay, so we've got 8-year-old Dia on the call as well. This is fantastic. Okay, excellent. Natalie, please give us your feedback. Working with Robots Can Think and your perspective of data sets. And we had a conversation, I think, on AI Apricot. Report.
I think the most important for me about data sets is being able to identify the biases that come with it. There's existing data sets. We can't change the data, and we can identify the data. The biases within the data. We can't change people. I think it's just a needle in a haystack if we're looking to change biases within a human. That's really important to me, is that these conversations happen when we build our AI data solutions that's going to impact the world. That we have a diverse lot of people looking at the data, looking at the solutions, as well as being that nitpicker, so that we break the trend of the past. Creating the data, to Selena's point, there's tons of avenues to create the data, but the question is really, are we creating the correct version of the data? We don't want to propagate and perpetuate the biases of the past. It's not something I support, and I don't think any woman around this table supports. So that's really important for me. I have a question though, and I want to change it up a little. I have a question to you, Jos. Your book, I've read it cover to cover, and the things that I saw in there, I would like you to share with the team here and with the audience at large, and perhaps tell us why you chose to highlight females around the world who are inventing and innovating in the way that they are, from where they are. Why did you choose to do that?
Natalie, thank you for the question. So again, it's kind of what I was born with, but the first book I wrote in 2017 was based on interviews with 800 boys and young men. And we interviewed, we asked them questions about things that they were dealing with. Because see, when we talk about diversity, it's not just having similar people answer that they're not, feeling like that they want more diversity. It's also including people that we think are benefiting from whatever system we have in place. So the first book was really around boys and young men. The second book, I have it here because we did mention it. I went to get it earlier. This is Girls Do Good. And Girls Do Good features 11 girls from around the world that are changing the world in their very own way. And it's a colorful guide to changing the world with stories of real life superheroes. And we don't define what a heroine is or a hero is. We don't define what innovation is. It doesn't matter. If you have if you're an adult or a kid, it really is irrelevant. If you see a problem that you feel passionate about changing, use your tools and your unique skills to go ahead and change that. So to answer Natalie, to answer your question, we have one girl in here who invented a cup because her grandfather had Parkinson's, and she invented a cup with 3 arms so that it would stand easier when he put it down because his hands would shake. Then we have a group of girls in Afghanistan that are coders and are developing games to help find opium, which is one of the biggest challenges facing Afghanistan. We have a girl who pursued her dream of becoming a professional surfer. We have an Emirati woman who is a figure skater. I mean, a figure skater in the desert. And we featured a girl who, in Malawi, a child bride. So we just chose stories from all over the world of just awesome kids doing awesome stuff. And awesome, yeah, Chris, we'll see if we can get you a copy. But, I think it's actually, we also got the book in Arabic because for me, it was like, when I think about content and what's out there, and I said this earlier, we repeat stories in English, and that's not necessarily okay either. I think, we can talk about the book, and it was a fantastic journey creating it. And I'll always love when I see boys reading it too, because kids don't care. They're like, this is colorful and I love these stories and it is all good. So that's really fantastic. But at the end of the day, it's about, I personally believe, encouraging people to turn up as their best self so that they can do the work that they're meant to do while they're on Earth. And that's the problem we try to solve with Binova. How do we actually build learning solutions that allow people to say, this is what I'm great at, this is what makes me special, and this is what I'm bringing to the world? And that's why we built Binova. That's why we focus on making Binova scalable. That's why we focus on being able to deploy the product in 100 languages. And yeah, I'm so proud to be on this panel today. I don't know if I can stay the entire time because I had actually not understood that it was almost a 2-hour panel. But, I think this is why there's so much room. There's so much room, and there's so much work to do. That's actually what, also keeps me up at night. It's like, how are we going to do all this in this lifetime?
I also think a lot, Yos, how can I do all of these? Because what keeps me up at night, and I didn't say this at the beginning, which I should at this point, is how do we continue to uphold the dignity of others, which is what the mandate of Socially Acceptable is about, to build a responsible digital citizenry through understanding AI, because it is the most powerful form of enabling tech that there is, the underlying one. And that's why we ask the questions about data sets. So to your question, is essentially everything we are doing is about upholding the dignity of others. And that is, your book is incredibly important because boys and girls don't understand gender disparity until you start teaching it to them in very real ways in the home, or they see your interaction with friends, family, and around the dinner table. And the comments you make are a direct reflection of what the child is learning in order to relay it back into society. So the book that you've created, combined with the tech element of the AR functionality, and again, when Yashmita is back, I want her to talk about why it was particularly important for her to do the sponsorship. It's fantastic to know that the work we are doing is, tech is an enabler, is but an enabler. What happens is that we are now helping people to, from everything I've heard all of you speak about, is about developing better human beings, asking the right questions, always interrogating your perspective of what matters, asking the right question rather than waiting for the right answer or waiting for an answer that would make sense in your world. And that really is what some of the comments are talking to. Firstly, before we go on, I must acknowledge and recognize Samantha Ngindi, who says that she's the director of ICT sector skills. Samantha, thank you for that correction, and we have noted that. Shlulani Baloy says, would be nice for Selena to share the link to the hackathon. We've shared it in the comments, Shlulani. She's also said, true story, I've previously worked on a project that was integrating with a Fika plugin, and I'm bringing it up now. We were all excited about this until the testing phase when we realized that it couldn't recognize me as a Black woman. We definitely cannot blame the owners for the conviction that the solution works, because, well, that's what they thought, but they had missed the inclusion element. So true, also because there's an excellent documentary now released from the 5th of April on Netflix called Coded Bias. Many of our panelists have already watched it. If you haven't, please check it out. But talking exactly to what we have been alluding to for the entire ones. So, Samantha Ngidi says, building solutions, making an idea reality supported by mentoring and coaching, 100%. All the women on this panel also in their forms, mentors and coaches. Tavi says, sadly, most people go through life without knowing their gifts and talents. Would be great if AI could assist with this from an early, middle stage, even later life for people who recognize their true potential while on earth, to what Yos said. Yos, yes. Recognizing, acknowledging, tying very nicely, tying up what you have mentioned there as we move on. What I want to do now in this last moments, Yash, you're back now. Talk to us before we ask Selena to give us a little bit more details about the virtual hackathon coming up. Why did you choose to sponsor the books? You've gotten 50 of Yos's books. Some of them will go to the winner finalists of Zindi, the hackathon, virtual hackathon happening. And then the Development Foundation has put out a call to organizations across the country to apply for the book at no cost who are invested in STEM. Why did you do this?
I think when you first sent me that email, Naz, it was a very easy decision for me. You know, I was telling you earlier, I'm guided by the Japanese philosophy of ikigai, which is basically finding your purpose, where your vocation and your purpose overlap. And daily, I'm guided by this philosophy, and I'm looking for that nirvana, that perfect overlap. And whenever I come across projects such as these, or organizations that meet this purpose, it's a very easy decision for me because it's my guiding light. And I knew immediately that Joss's book is something that we need to bring more of into South Africa. I mean, I asked you earlier this question: has this book been launched in South Africa? I'm not
This
sure.
is what I'm about to ask Yoss, so she's going to tell us just now about it.
Yeah, and this may be the start of a launch, but I think there's an opportunity to bring this book into South Africa because it's very much needed across many organizations. And I'm listening to everybody. I'm thinking about the work that we're doing in the schools. You know, some of the panelists are talking about guiding and coaching. Others are talking about an early stage.
I mean, the work that we're doing is a very, very like ECD type, early childhood development type work. And that's where it should start. It should start at that point. And it's not only about the technical skills, it's really about the skills about integrating into society and about your creativity. Because I mean, you could end up anyway. It doesn't have to be about technology or AI. There's creativity in almost every profession. There's creativity. I mean, I'm sure I have not met a creative accountant, but I'm sure I will one day. But there's creativity in accounting, so that's where we need to start. We need to start at ECD level to create these future females. And just a note around how we show up at the table. I think I shared something with you this today, Nez, from Standard Bank. We consciously hire women. So we've been recognized today as the most gender empowered ICT company in South Africa.
Yeah.
And that's because we make a conscious decision. I mean, we can talk about this, we can put the policies in place, but you have to make a conscious decision, and you've got to follow through with your policy to say, we will only hire females in this role. And that's exactly what we've done. And that's how we show up.
Yashmita, that is music to my ears. I think you've made my entire evening. It's just phenomenal to actually be able to speak a word and make it true. I really believe in honoring your word. So well done, and thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
There is, I think there's also like, it's really, I mean, it's difficult to think about all diversity, right? Like capturing all of it. But I think there's also phases in your life where you can celebrate different elements of diversity. Like I know what I'm going to be doing in the next phases of my life to highlight ageism, for example, or people that have a certain type of disability or whatever it might be. So you know what, Yashmita, what I love so much that you're saying is like, start this conversation, like have the conversation, make space for it. And when I think about our education system, another thing that keeps me up at night, and like I fall asleep at like 10 and every day I'm up at like 3. I'm like, how are we gonna do this? Because there is, and what I love so much about this panel, and I wish, now I feel so inspired. Like I want to go into the schools and the communities, because it's not the kids, it's the system that is not working for them, and that's a huge problem. And it really is something that I'm proud to work on education. I'm proud to work in this sector because I genuinely believe it's the most important work on earth. It genuinely is what's going to set us apart and what's going to build fruitful, happy futures. And I just loved that comment that was made earlier. The last thing you want is people whose incredible skills are lost because the system wasn't supporting them. So it's very inspirational. And I agree with Natalie, and just on how important it is to just actually walk the walk, walk the talk, talk the walk, whatever, just dance basically. But
Sunita, I want to bring you in at this point to talk about, picking up from Yos's point, you were discussing around walking the talk. And that's particularly, I think, what you want to do at the virtual hackathon you're having. So tell us a little bit more about it and invite people to join you on the YouTube live stream.
Sure. So the hackathon is going to be focused very specifically on building a machine learning model. So it's for those of you who are interested in learning how to code and build machine learning models, using Python. We will start the day with also a panel discussion with some of the leading women on Zindi, which I think whether or not you're interested in learning how to code in Python or not, it's still worth showing up for the live stream at the top of the day, which is going to kick off at 8 a.m. GMT. And from there, we'll have a technical orientation from one of the women data scientists on Zindi, who's going to walk people through a starter notebook in Python, and then off people go. People are going to be creating teams, building machine learning models using the data set that's provided. And and by the end of the day, we'll have our top 3 winners, and we will also be able to happily award the book to the winners, which is really exciting. And this is really, I mean, kind of to what we're all talking about. It's about creating space. We very explicitly said, if we find men on the leaderboard, we're going to kick them right off, because what we've heard from the women in Zindi, what we've talked to them about, is that a lot of them, are looking for a safe space where they can, where they can learn, where they can make mistakes, where they can try different things, and and not feel kind of that I guess intimidation sometimes that a lot of women feel when they get into these STEM fields. I mean, I can even speak for myself that it's it can be I mean, sometimes it can be a bit of a hostile environment for women in these fields. That's just the truth of how the world is. And so what we really wanted to do on Saturday is create a safe space, create a space where women can learn from each other, form teams, build machine learning models. And actually, this is going to be a kickoff to, as well, a women's mentorship program that we'll be launching a few weeks later. So at the end of the hackathon, we'll also announce this and invite people to apply to be a part of the mentorship group as well.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. I want to, at this stage, talk about, I'll tell everyone here on the call, my machine has died, so I'm on my mobile, which means I'm looking at comments, and I'll ask the rest of my guests to help me with the comments coming up from our different Facebook pages and our social chatter going on. But the question I want to ask next, because we have 15 minutes left in this particular discussion, is around, we started out talking creativity, diversity, AI. If I asked you to give a parting comment, because we have various audience members here. They're from government, agriculture, different organizations that are committed to training, like MIXITA, who give the accreditation or qualifications for training. And then you've got various people from perspectives like civil society organizations, authors, writers, artists, creatives. If you looked at creativity, diversity, AI, what is your one takeaway you would give to the audience, which could be like a sticker for your laptop? If it had to be a sticker on a laptop, what would you want to say about creativity, diversity, and AI for anyone watching this particular session, especially as a woman? Yashmita, I'm going to start with you because you're creative like that.
I think I've already created my sticker, Naz. I mean, that's our tagline, isn't it? It's bringing EQ into AI. And for me, it's all about that. It's bringing the emotional intelligence into how you create your AI models. And for me, that's the biggest takeaway. Don't forget that it's still all about the human being and the human connection.
Yeah.
And before I drop off, Naz, I'd really like us to look at Nomsa's question about ensuring that people in the rural and township areas have access to tech. I think that's a fundamental question we need to answer and speak about being in South Africa.
Got you. Thank you very much for that. Natalie, what would you have as a keyboard or a laptop sticker?
It would be harmonizing human and artificial intelligence. Yeah. And I think we all have the creative side to us. We just think that AI diversity and creativity needs to be done by somebody else, but we all kind of are creative in our own ways. Let's just bring it together and see how we make this world a better place.
Yes. What would your keyboard or laptop sticker say? Creativity, diversity, AI, combining those.
It literally depends on where I am in the month. And that's what I think is another beautiful element of being a woman. It's like, give me any of the seasons and I'll work with it. But no, if I really think about it, we really go by human-based tech design, and always driven by social good, by art, by making an impact and leading with the heart to create.
Leading with the heart. I like that, because sometimes it's just an absolute logic, which is what we're trying to teach our machines. If we can bring the heart into it, how do we bring the heart into it?
The minute my brain gets involved, I'm like, no, this is what my gut is saying, and this is what my heart is feeling, and that's what we're gonna go with.
That's it, right? I mean, if we're teaching machines logic, then how do we teach them intuition? And I wonder that you can't build that into prediction or analysis based on trends.
Well, we absolutely have to stay creatively challenging those notions, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Selena, what would your sticker keep laptop?
Well, and I think going to the question about how do we involve more people in less serviced areas and townships, I'm just thinking about, what I really believe in with Zindi is that creativity plus diversity is what's going to unlock the power of AI. It's going to be what leads to the most impactful AI solutions. We need diversity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we've gotten everyone's laptop sticker comments. I think I'm going to, as a commitment or a challenge from this session, I'm going to have all of them done and sent out to each organization. My laptop sticker would say, don't interrogate the answer, interrogate your question. So that would be my laptop sticker, because I think it's always important to know what you're asking and why, rather than waiting for the right answer. Like we said at the beginning of this conversation, we have quite a few interesting audience members. I want to wrap up the conversation, and Natalie, we will hand over to you to finish up, because I know you wanted to give a parting shot from the entire team altogether, especially Women in AISA. But before we do, a question from Nomsa around getting connectivity into rural areas. The reason I'm focusing or zoning in on that question, I would like every panelist to give us a 1 minute insight, please, 1 minute, as we are running short on time. If we are looking at connectivity in this country, which we know has particular challenges, this was addressed in a session yesterday under the Global Technology Forum that was held by the World Economic Forum and hosted by Japan. Direct question for Africa's challenges around connectivity, especially in rural areas, the fact that energy is a problem for us here, with load shedding particularly, and looking at industries, whether it's agriculture, manufacturing, automotive. What would you say, looking at getting that particular idea together? How would you, in 1 minute, encapsulate your particular vision of why that and how that would be achieved in this context? Natalie.
I was hoping you would not start with me.
Let's move on. So no, you have to go.
Yeah. So my 2 cents worth, I think.
You're on the Forbes cover. You're in the Forbes magazine. I have to start with you.
So I think we've solved it. We've solved the connectivity issue for rural areas. We've built, as robots can think, something called School in the Box that uses mesh technology to provide connectivity to the rural areas. It's just about getting it out there and getting people to use it. I think there's phenomenal people in the world who have also solved the same problem. So I would love to connect with whoever asked the question, just to direct them to the source of how we solved it, and let's get it out there. I'm happy to even sponsor it and just get people.
The solution's available, but implementation might be the issue of where we're having a problem.
And it's more about just getting the word out there, coming to these forums, talking to wonderful women. It's been solved. It's not something we need to solve.
It's not something we have to do.
Yeah. Yes.
Jos, what would you say to that? And I'll come to you, Selena. I'll come to you as soon as we're done with Jos.
Selena, go ahead.
Okay.
I know it's not an easy question. So I think that there's 2 sides of I guess the potential question that's being asked. I mean, or kind of the challenge that's being posed in terms of being more inclusive to all populations in terms of AI. There's the AI solutions and the impact that those AI solutions have, and then there's also the career track, or just the ability for an individual to get into this field and become some of the innovators in the AI field. So I think on both of those sides, diversity again is important. Diversity in terms of the way of thinking about the problems and thinking about the solutions for both of those. How do we get curriculum and training opportunities, career opportunities, even the technology and even the internet connectivity and the electricity? How do we get that into people's hands so that they can become AI engineers and AI creators and innovators themselves? There's one organization in Nigeria called Data Science Nigeria that is literally sending out CDs with all of their learning content to people, because internet connectivity, electricity, all of those things are challenges. So I think in a way we have to go back to solving, I guess, that whole design thinking thing that, you know, that we have to be solving with the context and understanding of people's real life realities around them. So in terms of being able to build their careers, and then secondly, the same, once they're able to upskill, they will be the creators of AI solutions that means something to them and their communities. So that's one leads to the other, and we have to absolutely create space for that.
Thank you, Selena. Yes.
In the interest of time, I'm not going to go on. I would just say raise the standards. Why is this good enough? Why is this good enough, ESCOM? It's not. And that's where I think we also have to start realizing that, hey, let's really talk about why this is acceptable. And South African people can be extremely resilient, courageous, curious, happy, beautiful people. That's what I know you to be. But this is simply not good enough.
Thank you, Yos. Before we wrap up, I just want to go through some of the comments. YDEI Africa, well done, Natalie, on the School in a Box solution for rural connectivity. Tavi Gwena says, amen. Well done, Natalie, for being in the latest Forbes Africa 100th issue. Shamira asks, how diverse are you in your product offering and just in your line of business? I think some of these questions we can send to our panelists and ask them to answer them. Please, we'll provide answers on our social media channels. Samantha says, a challenge to the panel members, uplifting the community is great. But how do we get women to start serving on company boards, your company boards, and foster a culture of sisterhood? Lily Moawi says, AI has personally affected each panel member. This is indeed amazing. And we finally finish off with Mputle Dikobe says, was just about to ask mentorship. Awesome. I'm so inspired to be part of this life-changing phase. I believe every woman that needs to grow beyond their comfort zone needs this. Yash, you were talking about the connectivity in rural, and we'll finish off that particular answer with you. The Dear Development Foundation is committed to addressing that particular subject, and I heard Natalie talk about the School in a Box. So it's pretty much, I feel like the two of you have a link already.
Yeah, and in fact, I was just going to say to Natalie that I think I can actually connect her with 3 telcos like now this evening already to get that School in the Box going. I can't name who they are, but 3 of them, Natalie, I can already hook you up.
Fantastic.
So, we'll talk after this. And then, Naz, I keep telling you, I'm sure there's a little boy or a little girl somewhere in the rural area that has the cure for cancer in their head. And we know that we actively looking for a young lady that's developed an earring that helps towards gender-based violence. Apparently, it has some other trigger in it, and I'm trying to find it so that I can enable it with an IoT device so that it can hook up into a police station. So these things exist. I think we need to take some of these centers down to the rural areas rather than bringing the young ones up to us. And I know there's many organizations doing that already. I think it's just momentum. Momentum is building now. It's taken us this long. And what I've been seeing over the past year is just more and more organizations coming to the front doing exactly what all of us are doing. So I feel very positive and very inspired by what's going on. And I think, yes, slowly but surely we are getting there.
Thank you so much, Yash. I think final comment, I want to hand over to Natalie to give some thanks before I wrap up with the final words on this particular session. What I took away from today, being also a woman in technology research, being an AI ethics officer, media and communications specialist, is that the fields or the areas that we are all bringing together here, YOS, understanding the perspective of how human beings engage, having the books as educational tools in order to enlighten, open up the minds of those who may not have thought about that way before, and bringing the tech element as an enabler for you to experience it. Selena having the platform to be able to understand data sets, gender at the forefront of why we are building solutions and how those all matter in terms of understanding them in the midst of our conversation in this context, in this space in Africa. Natalie, looking at form, functionality, and collaborating with people across the board, especially with being a chapter representative of Women in AI SA. And Yashmita coming together, bringing years of experience as an entrepreneur, as well as having the positive social impact ethos that directs everything she does, together with the foundation that she's now bringing as a collaborator to Zindi Africa. And collaborating alongside Jos for a potential launch, Jos, hopefully in South Africa. And then tying that up together with the amazing audience members that we've had, talking about the availability of correct and appropriate data sets, what it means for women to have space at the table, talking about tech solutions that matter for everyone, design thinking that really does incorporate different perspectives and a multidisciplinary approach, and what it means for us to have form and function with robots and a correct understanding with human beings. I think if there's one thing we wanted to take away was that we opened up the conversation even further. So thanks everyone for being able to do that. I'd like to close off just after Natalie does so, but Natalie, over to you.
I would just like to say thank you to you, phenomenal women, for impacting my journey. The audience members, Sam, Siviwe, the rest of you, Naomi, Cleo, just, I mean, it's been phenomenal. This event happened over one WhatsApp text. The 50 book sponsorship happened over one WhatsApp text. And Selena, I have the greatest respect for you. You always say yes to Women in AI, and especially me. Also, one text and it was done. I think it just cements the topic for conversation. Sometimes we just as individuals, we don't have the answer to everything. But as soon as we bring a collective of minds together, we can solve a lot. And we may not see the benefit of this event today or tomorrow, but we will see it in the months to come. And I believe that Jos, your place is here in Africa for South Africa, and therefore the launch of these books and all the wonderful stuff that you do. Selena, your impact around Africa is just phenomenal. You have created a brand that everybody speaks about. It's amazing. Yashmita, thank you so much for saying yes to women, to children, to education, and to your purpose. And to Naz, my gosh, I've never met Naz face to face. Do you know that? It's always been a conversation over a call, and our actual meeting was in an event that Selena and I sat around. And literally within seconds, this happened. Shamira, thank you for your incredible work to date, supporting women and the sisterhood, as we like to call it here in South Africa. And I look forward to journeying with you all.
This is great stuff. I want to say a very big thank you to the team at NAS Consulting, Corporate Media Academia, who helped to put together this really amazing event. To Rudo, who is on Natalie's team. She did phenomenal work with the graphics, the posters, the intro video. She is just an amazing lady, and I think she may have a home at NAS Consulting, as you were talking about earlier on. Yashmita,
yes, that's the best news ever.
I'm so excited to have met all of you today. It was the first time I met you, Jos, Selena. We have connected on LinkedIn, but you really inspire me to do even better work than I have been doing at the moment. Yashmita, of course, is my partner in crime on the road of work and journey that we're doing. I would like to let everyone know at this stage, as part of Socially Acceptable, we have an AI ethics component. I would like to take an opportunity to let you know, as part of my training under my mentor, who is Kay Firth Butterfield, head of AI and machine learning at the World Economic Forum, we are also involved in World Economic Forum projects that will be kicked off in South Africa, and we will be making those announcements shortly. So just to give you some insight on what is happening on our side, if you need anything on AI ethics, please email me, naz@sociallyacceptable.co.za. Go and check out Jos's website on the book for Girls Do Good. Check out Selena's upcoming hackathon. We've posted the link in the comment section. The hackathon's happening on the 10th of April. It is a virtual live stream via YouTube. Natalie has Robots Can Think. Connect with her on Twitter. And Yashmita Bana, Nika Technology Group. Go to nika.co.za, dia.co.za, which is DHIYA. You can connect with all of us via those channels. Find us on the social media channels. And we will catch you all next time. Good night, everyone. Catch you soon.